more Fire React, no more 3 hours of relaxing Nintendo music. I'm thinking about buying this sauce. It looks delicious. Heat is only 2 out of 10, but it's like a herby ranch hot sauce. Oh,
1,600, give or take a few $100. But I got like a 28% API rate, or 30, or 26, and so it's going to be like 2K at the end of the day. 2.4, 2K. So I'll pay it off for in 2 years, 100 a month.
I'm fucked up.
Damn. Yeah, it is not bad. Oh, I appreciate it. Okay, because some people could say that's horrible.
Yeah. We're gonna leave Will up. We're gonna leave Will up. Okay, let's see. Live playlist. Let's see. Parents, teachers, and students debate the U.S. education system. Um, it's either that. Okay, there's three or trans versus detrans. That one's gonna be a fucked up one. Uh, there's also queer versus conservative parents, but that one's way longer. Also, check this out. Beer. This is actually a root beer barrel. It's a drink that Quill is has made me, and it's just beer, but with root beer schnapps in it. And that sounds fucked up, and it kind of is, to be honest with you. It's so warm. It's warm. But I'm still gonna drink it. I'm still drinking it. Come on, who am I kidding? Okay. Okay. We're gonna do the education system one. How about that?
The privilege discussion, like that's a great conversation for you to have with your child. But I don't think
I fucking hate this guy. This guy was so the same people that are on like the Jubilee panels are oftentimes here at Vice, and they're the same kinds of people. The same people jump between all of these different debates. This guy was in the like male feminists versus male anti-feminists panel, and so now he's on the panel for the education system. And he was an anti-feminist, by the way, if that's not clear. If that wasn't clear, was me hating this guy. Anyways, let's take a look.
the privilege discussion, like that's a great conversation for you to have with your child. But I don't think that taxpayer-funded hatred should be something that we allow in our schools.
Okay, bro, real talk though, like brother to brother. Teaching white privilege does not inherently mean black people are less. Factually incorrect.
Ooh, this is gonna get spicy. Let's go.
SATs.
No, wait. Gotta be careful.
I'm Mina Durson. I'm a correspondent here at Vice News, and we're going to talk about education today. We tried to bring a very diverse mix of voices here. Obviously, we're not going to be able to represent every single opinion out there when it comes to education, but we are really thankful for your time and for your perspectives. I also have 2 kids in school, so have experienced some of this from the parent side as well. So let's just start really broadly. What's the purpose of education?
I think the purpose of education is twofold. One, to help build and support the individual, but also help build and support society as a whole. Because even though you may not have a kid in education, you pay taxes to public school because we as a society depend on and need education for society to work.
I think the purpose of education is to educate and not indoctrinate. And I think that in a lot of ways...
That is so annoying, dude. That is so annoying. If you ever want to hear the worst opinion you ever heard in your life, just wait for somebody to say indoctrinate, okay? And then directly after that, they're going to give you the worst opinion you've ever heard in your life.
We've strayed from that and the original purpose of what it's supposed to be.
I think it should be intelligence and character. I think you should be able to understand the world around you and understand who you are and your purpose and try to make the world a better place. I think that it has to be a mix of the skills, memorizing the formulas, understanding the world around you, but then also what to do with it.
And just to go off that, the idea that education, you have to balance the importance of memorizing the quadratic formula while simultaneously addressing social and political issues respectively. So children have both the know-how, general knowledge, and also kind of self-awareness and character so they're able to develop their own opinions.
Yeah, I think that the purpose of education is to understand the world that you exist in and use that understanding as a means for creating change or even understanding yourself on a deeper level.
I believe the purpose is simply just to prepare the individual to be successful in the society that they exist in.
Critical thinking, learn how to live out your full potential so you can be independent, and everything else really flows from there.
The purpose of education is to prepare children for the real life and also make sure that they are literate.
So I think the purpose is to raise the next generation of leaders. And when you think about what you want your leaders to be like, you want them to be knowledgeable, and you want them to be compassionate, you want them to be self-aware, you want them to understand the best way to move forward, not just for themselves personally, but for their whole community.
When we talk about who's doing the educating, who should decide what's being taught?
Parents.
Oh my God. Who should decide what's being taught? Somebody who's trained in teaching, or somebody who's not trained in fuck all. This idea that the parents should control everything that happens at a school is so fucking ludicrous to me. Parents are oftentimes fucking numbskulls. Dude, my parents were 19 when they had me. 20 when they had me. If my parents were deciding what I learned in school, I'd be so fucking idiotic right now. Are you fucking kidding me? Parents absolutely should not. People who go to school for a long time to learn how to teach kids should be deciding what they learn. Also, in other countries outside of the US that have much better education systems, because if you didn't know, our education system in the U.S. is ranked I think 36 in the world. The richest country in the world has the rank 36 in education. Okay? Other countries that have a much higher rank in their education, they pay their teachers much better, and teachers also are required to go to school for much longer so that they can be true experts in their fields. Okay? But this idea that parents know best all the time is so fucking insane. Nobody actually fucking believes that, unless you're some egotistical weirdo, which, I mean, some of these parents that say that are.
I think that parents should have a huge say in what's going on in the classroom because it's their kids, not ours. As a public school teacher 15 years, I was always aware that these are not my children. We have to make sure that we're respecting
Lamau Coldfire. Yeah, say hi to YouTube.
Parents and their beliefs and their values.
I think the Constitution agrees with that.
Yes.
Here in America, ranging back to the early 1900s, plenty of Supreme Court cases have ruled in that favor that it is the parents.
It's so stupid. It's so stupid. Yeah, so every child's parent is going to come into school and then tell the teacher, I want this to be taught and I want this to be taught. Everybody's going to have conflicting things. It's not. It's silly. It's silly. Also, I hate when you're talking about actual any sort of actual debate. If you are relying on the Constitution as your nail in the coffin, that you have a bad argument. Okay? Because the Constitution isn't the end all be all of all rules of morality. We already know that in the U.S., a lot of the laws and then the way the justice system works, a lot of these things that are laid down in the Constitution, we know are morally unjust. So the Constitution is just throw it out the window. Don't even bring it into the conversation. Okay? This is when you're sending your child to school, who gets to choose what your child learns? It should be between the teacher and your children, but also like it's a deeper conversation than that because, like I said, the teachers in the U.S. are severely underpaid and they are also undertrained compared to other countries. But if you think that the average parent, if you think the average parent has a better idea of what children should be learning than the average teacher, then you're one, lying to yourself, and two, completely out of your mind.
Right, ultimately, to decide a child's education, medical needs, etc.
I would push back, though, and say that there does need to be collaboration, right? I completely respect your idea of it is not our job as educators to put forth a belief in front of children, right? That includes not perpetuating parents' beliefs in the classroom as well. In my opinion, that would be keeping a non-biased viewpoint, simply presenting issues, and then allowing kids to decide for themselves.
I would agree that I think it needs to be a collaborative effort. The way that we decide curriculum in Texas is that work groups comprised of community members, educators, parents, even in some cases students and public service officials come together to draft curriculum plans, and then it's ultimately decided on by our State Board of Education, which has a lot of kind of assistance from parents
didn't know
as
that.
well. So I think that kind of format can be really effective because it also empowers students to become involved in the fate of their education. And as a student myself, I think that that's incredibly important because our perspectives need to be heard as well.
The voices of parents need to be heard in that equation. But unfortunately, what we've seen recently
In before homophobia, transphobia,
is that parents' voices have been demonized in this process. You've seen parents who have criticized local school boards labeled terrorists simply for caring about the quality of their education that their child is receiving. These teachers are temporary caretakers.
it's not a pre-watch. When I say that I don't like this guy because of what I saw from the Jubilee video that he was in, it's like I know what his arguments are already going to be. He's very much so like a classic nuclear family type of guy. Like he doesn't like trans people. He doesn't like gay people. He thinks that the gay people are indoctrinating your kids. Like I already know the points he's gonna make because he's gonna make the same points he made about anti-feminism about the education system now.
When they come back home, it's the parent who has to explain that this is this radical belief that was put in front of you. This was this idea that
This radical belief, okay? Listen to okay, so when you don't know that somebody is transphobic, homophobic, misogynistic, when you don't know, it's hard to hear like the signs of what people are saying, but listen to the language he's using without saying exactly what he's talking about. Radical beliefs. You know, they have to re-explain to their kids about the radical beliefs. What are the radical beliefs that they're being taught in school, you think?
that you've never been raised around that parent now has to explain. And at the end of the day, that isn't just confined to a classroom. Now it's bleeding into their upbringing, and there's only one person responsible for their upbringing, and that's the parents. It's not the educator, it's not the teacher, it's their parents.
I like the idea of the collaboration, and obviously parents' voices belong at that.
I do want to make one more point really quick. They say who's responsible for their upbringing, the parents or the teachers. Teachers spend 8 hours a day with kids, by the way. Especially if you're a teacher for elementary school where they don't switch around in classrooms, you're spending a big bulk of the waking out. Like, you're spending like 50% of kids' waking hours with them. So it is like it almost is like a co-parenting in a way. Like, that's not to say that it should be like that or that the teacher gets parental rights or anything like that, but it is. You can't ignore that fact when you're talking about teaching in education.
That table. I also like the emphasis on students having a say in this, and also other people adults that aren't parents. I'm invested in that too, even though I don't have children of my own. And I hear what you're saying about having to, like, parents needing to confront or address, I guess, like what kids are learning at school. But giving kids the exposure to other ideas or other things that they wouldn't be exposed to otherwise is, I think, part of what's going to help raise the next generation of people that are able to look outside their own lived experience.
But I think that oftentimes those different ideas
I'm just waiting for it. Look, just say what you're saying, dude. Just say what you're saying, okay? Stop tiptoeing around it. Different ideas. Let's see. Let's roll that back. He's gonna say it
Look
again.
outside
Different
their
ideas.
own lived experience.
But I think that oftentimes those different ideas are presented in the classroom as a student as the only idea. When you're being taught that, oh, there's this many genders or anything like this, where
Stop! Stop! Oh! Is he saying it? Oh!
you haven't been exposed to that in your own household, it's being presented as like the end all be all when it actually isn't. It's about educating and not indoctrinating.
Oh, there it is. There it is. He did it. He did it. He did the transphobia. I told you. Roll it back. Roll it back. I told you earlier. He said he was going to base it all on transphobia. So easy. It's so easy to see when they're going to do this. And the reason why they get... Okay, so... this is something I was thinking about earlier this week. The reason why when we watch these videos, we oftentimes recognize the same conservative people in the videos between different companies, because this is Vice. The other one that I watched him on was Jubilee. The reason why you see the same people is because it's hard to find conservative grifters that make a decent point compared to normal people who make a decent point for the other way. React to this emote. God damn it. D's and it's a nutsack. How did that get past verification? Good Christ. Somebody is abusing their instant emote verification. I won't tell on him. But somebody's abusing it just a little bit. Somebody is in trouble. So true. But yeah, the reason why you recognize the same conservative grifters is because it's difficult to find decent ones because they sound wild and crazy. And also, he's making the same points as the other video in this video because they have like two modes. They have transphobia and misogyny and homophobia modes. And that's the basis of all their arguments for everything. For everything. We're talking about education here. The video I watched him in last was anti-feminism. It's like it's the same argument for every single thing.
As long as that is presented as a counterpoint to, well, there's people who believe this, but there's also people who believe this, that's okay. The reality of it is that in most classrooms across the country, that isn't what's happening.
What he's advocating for is they shouldn't be teaching facts. They shouldn't be teaching reality in the classrooms. They should be teaching what my beliefs are in the classrooms.
To piggyback off of that, one side is labeled as a bigot, white supremacist, homophobic. There's a lot of parents in America that are Christian or, they believe in two genders, gender binary. And if you say that as a teacher, especially, you could...
Yeah, because Jesus famously said there are only two genders. And the 11th commandment is, thou shalt not have more than two genders. That's so fucking funny.
Could be labeled as homophobic. So there isn't this unbiased classroom because there's one side that can't really be,
That's because okay. Here, I'm gonna show you physically something here. Reality is here. Okay? Reality is here. Evangelicals are here. Okay? Extreme leftists, the most extreme a leftist that you can think of, maybe like here. And when I'm talking about extreme leftists, I'm talking about like over policing everything you do. They're like here, maybe. This is middle ground. The microphone's the middle ground. Extreme leftist, right here for reality. Evangelicals, Okay? So their non-biased is much farther away from their beliefs because their beliefs are not rooted in reality. Okay? Reality is where the non-biased classroom comes into play. Okay? It's much closer to progressives because their arguments and their viewpoints are rooted in reality and not religion. First of all, religion doesn't belong in the classroom. We've all agreed on that. That's how that works. Okay? But it's just not reality. It's not. It doesn't matter how many times you tell them that scientists and doctors believe something. They're just they choose to believe in their own reality, and then they think that the only way that you can have an unbiased classroom is if you don't talk about anything they don't like. That's not how that works. That's not how non-biased speaking works. And that's also similarly exactly why conservatives think there's all this fake news, because news organizations will say things that are like against conservatives. Mind you, I think that most news organizations are horrible, and they all work. They're corporations, so they all work for somebody. But like, they do talk about when something's not rooted in reality. They do say mostly the truth most of the time.
As loud as the other side without risk of, losing our jobs even.
But you two are kind of the ones that brought in the conflict of like, there is an indoctrination going on and only one side it has this opinion and this side is not allowed to talk and we have to be quiet. When really you guys are actually the loudest in regards to this issue thus far, right?
Right now, yes,
So,
in
yeah,
this
so,
room,
so
yes.
I wouldn't necessarily say
Right now in this room, no, in the world. It's so annoying. You guys, conservatives do not stop chirping, dude. That's all they know how to do.
that's the quiet. What I would say though is like I do want to push away if possible, but I'd love for you to hear this, right? Is that idea of someone sees me and they go, oh, you're one of those that teach that there's 72 different types of gender. Desmond Fambrini, he, him, gender fluid, bisexual. My students do not know this because it doesn't come up because I'm a learning specialist and it's my job to educate and teach a curriculum, right? Now, if I'm asked directly by a parent or if there's confusion, oh, why do you wear makeup? Same reason why girls do, because it's fun for me. It doesn't need to be this very controversial, I'm gonna mess with this child's upbringing, they're gonna go home and they're gonna turn into a gender fluid and they're gonna think there's 72 genders.
I think that's a question you say you should go ask your parents about how they feel about that.
Well, so
What? Wait, hold on. I feel like I missed something. Thanks, Coldfire.
I'm gonna mess with this child's upbringing, they're gonna go home and they're gonna turn into a gender fluid and they're gonna think there's 72 genders.
I think that's a question you say you should go ask your parents about how they feel about that.
Well, so, okay.
What? If somebody asks you what gender you are or why you wear makeup, you go, you're going to have to ask your parents. What? Excuse me? No? What the fuck is wrong with you, dude?
Okay.
Teachers are supposed to teach reading, math, science, the things that are actually going to make them contributing members of society. Answering a child's questions about whether or not men or women should be wearing makeup or not is, I don't think, within that realm.
Okay, so you said science, right? And so we're talking about a physical science, we're talking about human anatomy and biology here. So
Okay. Desmond is about to go the fuck off, dude. Okay, I'm going to say this also. It's like, whenever they have these panels, the queer people, the trans people, the gay people, always absolutely go off. They just absolutely rage, and all the conservatives in the room always look like horseshit because of it. And I love to see it. That's why I watch these Vice panels, because I love to see it, okay? I love it.
So a child says, I thought boys could not wear makeup. I have an X and Y chromosome and I'm wearing makeup. I could factually answer that without indoctrinating with any opinion.
But it's in no way scientific, your answer to that question.
How is that not scientific?
I would say maybe cultural, or it's a perception or an opinion.
What?
But it's in no way scientific.
Anyone else? I am a chatty person, so I'm going to take a pause and I'm going to let's see if anyone else has something to say.
So I just had one question for you, because not all homes are welcoming or open to conversation or safe. So how do we balance that?
I think that what we're saying is that there are certain conversations that are not to be had with a teacher. And I think that the argument that a lot of people on the right and conservatives are making is that we just don't feel as if actors of the state should be having conversations that are taxpayer-funded conversations with children about conversations that have not come up in their own households. And to that point, if you can't talk about God in the classroom, why can we talk about every gender under the sun?
There's another one. There's another one. Yes, because gender is a religion, actually. If you didn't know this, the Alphabet Warriors is a religion. Praise be the Alphabet Warriors.
Right? I think that's the conundrum that we find ourselves in. If we are banning those conversations, we've banned those a long time ago, then how can we have these conversations just because they belong to a different side of the political aisle?
So I think we actually talk about God in the classroom all the time, right?
Yeah.
Who's taught religion? Who's taught world religions? Who's taught like history in the way that, Puritans, and that's okay, because God is part of the fabric of history and whatever else.
We talk about it from a development perspective. This is how Christianity originated. This is how Islam originated. We don't talk about like, this is what this gender is, and this is if you feel this way, then there's gender affirmation therapy, all those things.
I think you actually bring up a really good parallel of like, I feel comfortable and I feel like it is okay to talk about identity issues the same way we talk about God.
And also the same way we talk about the ad break. But there are 4 ways that you can skip the ad break, okay? Then one of them is $5 a month. You get all the emotes and an ad-free viewing experience. Second way is by attaching your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. You get 1 free Prime sub a month. You can use that on me or anybody else. The third way is you can get gifted a sub by many generous and charitable gifters in the community if you hang out here long enough. And fourth way is by saving up your gravy globs, aka your channel points. You can redeem 35,000 points for Gift Me a Sub, and I will personally gift you a sub. Here's that ad break now. Not the ad break. Look, it comes when it comes. Okay, I don't choose when it comes. Okay, I have a bot to tell me when it's time, and then I try my best to debate everybody.
Therapy, all those things.
I think you actually bring up a really good parallel of like, I feel comfortable and I feel like it is okay to talk about identity issues the same way we talk about God. Not indoctrinating anyone, not telling this is what you have to be or you have to believe, but saying this is something that some people believe.
But in the sense of gender identity, I don't see that parallel. How is that making someone more literate, more secure?
This is what makes me so mad about this, is he made the parallel. This guy made the parallel. He started this conversation with, why do we get to talk about gender identities, but not about God? That is why do we get to talk about what you believe and your beliefs, which, by the way, it's not a parallel. Religion and gender identity is not a parallel. Gender identity exists and is real. Religion is not scientifically proven to be real, okay? So it's not a parallel, but he drew the parallel. And then they're saying, you're right. Let's make that parallel. You know what? We can talk about gender identity the same way that we talk about religion in class. We can talk about the fact that it exists, and we can talk about the details of it, but we don't have to say whether or not you should believe that it's true. And then he goes, well, that's not the parallel. That's not a parallel. When it's convenient for you, it's not a parallel. But when it's convenient for me, then it's great.
In the sense of gender identity, I don't see that parallel. How is that making someone more literate, more successful?
What I hear you saying is that learning about different gender identities does not make somebody a more considerate, well-rounded person.
It certainly does, by the way. And he's about to lay into him for this one, I think. I think he's about to make a slam dunk point, Desmond is.
But learning about different religions does make you a more considerate, well-rounded.
I'm saying that is a part of history. I don't understand where gender identity falls within what we
religious history and God comes into
This guy's going to get so dunked on, dude.
play in terms of history. Cool. But don't gay people and trans people too? It's not like I'm the first transgender person to ever walk this earth. Like there are trans people that were, and gay people who were part of major movements in this country, like from the civil rights movement to the feminist movement to,
don't get him started on the feminist movement. Don't get him started. Trust me, I watched the Jubilee video. Don't get him started. Don't let this man cook.
Like, isn't that part of history too?
Let's just take a step back. So just show of hands. Who here thinks public school is the best option for kids? Okay. And who thinks private school is the best option for kids? Who thinks homeschool is the best option for kids? And then some of you guys didn't raise your hands at all.
It's so challenging to pick one right answer for that, because essentially what you're asking is, who do you trust the most with your children? Who do you trust to give them the cultural values that I have, and then fill in the gaps where I don't necessarily know the answer, but I trust that they're experts and are going to give my children the attention that they need in order to develop so that they can be a better version of themselves.
If I had to choose one, it's public school. It is the best tool we have to give everybody a chance at a good education, no matter where you come from, how much money you have. Public schools, where not everybody thinks the same and people are coming from all walks of life, is a good microcosm of that global experience where you.
I mean, let's be real. That's not true either. School districts are gerrymandered, just like everywhere else. And that's how look, I'm going to tell you something right now. Everybody in here, unless you come from a really small town that had one high school, everybody in here, their hometown had a nice high school and a really bad high school. Okay? This point that she's making, I get what she's trying to say. It's like everybody goes there, you get to meet people from all walks of life. And I get to an extent that does work, but everybody's town had the nice high school and the bad high school. Yeah, my city did, even though nothing was totally wrecked in my city or anything like that, but there's high schools that constantly had money pouring into them and being updated all the time, and then you had high schools where they were notorious for having fights all the time. Actually, my high school was on national news because we had a fight club in the high school. Some fucking crazy shit. And that happens all over the country, though. That happens all over the country. In every town that has more than one high school. They're not equally funded. They don't have people from all over the city. You don't get to choose which high school you go to. You have to go to the one that's in your district. And the district, and, cities are split up into sections where they're the nicer houses are all in one part of the city. They are all in the same school district. That school district gets more funded because there's people with more money in it than the people that go to the bad school. That's a reality. We were one of the poorest schools in the area, although it wasn't violent and was a poor white school. I mean, still, I think, yeah, but the nice school will always have money funneling into it. They have new football uniforms every year. They have really nice dances. Prom is at a ballroom, and then the poor school, it's they're using the same sweaty football uniforms from 10 years ago. They're doing prom in the gym. It's very clear to see if you look at high school. Nothing was fun. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's all the money always funnels into where people who have money are.
You can learn critical thinking skills and learn how to be a good community member, because not everybody looks like you or thinks like you.
Kali, you were shaking your head.
Oh, well, first of all, our schools are more segregated ever than our public schools, especially in blue states, New York and California.
Give me a break. What? I mean, maybe she's going to make a maybe she's going to make a point about school districts. You know what? Let's hear her out. Actually, I jumped to a conclusion there because she was agreeing a lot with this guy in the front here. Let's hear her out.
California have the most segregated schools. And on top of that, we are in a place where our public schools are not safe, especially the last 20 years. And I just don't see why sending our kids to these environments where it's unsafe. We also used to be, because I used to be on the left, we used to be against the institutionalization of our children. These kids are being institutionalized.
So I used to be on the left.
Places where there's 2,000, 3,000 kids. I'm okay with public school, but the problem with it is that it's become an environment where it's almost like the school to prison pipeline. We used to talk about that in the 90s. We're not talking about that anymore. And I think that's something.
Okay. We are still talking about that. There are so many people still talking about that, okay? She's like, oh, I used to be on the left. Okay, you turned to conservatism to continue the school to prison pipeline? What are you on about?
Thing that parents need to wake up about and America needs to wake up about, the institutionalization of our children.
I talk about the school to prison pipeline
Yeah.
all day, every day. And I hear what you're saying, that it's terrible that there are parents who are sending their kids to schools that are not safe. However, what about the parents that don't have a choice? Like, I'm thinking about like the most marginalized community when I said public schools here, because I agree with you, the public schools have a lot of work to do to become the safe places where our kids are not in institutions where they're ignored or not giving the services they need. And also, for the people that don't have a choice and that is the only option their kids have, I just believe that's worth fighting for. That's why I said public
Absolutely.
schools.
I'm a big advocate for school choice.
Well, why don't we just show of hands? Who believes in school choice?
Can you just specify, like, what do you mean by
So
that?
that's where parents can apply the money that they pay to taxes. They get vouchers, and they can put that into any school that they want. It's very popular in red states right now, and a lot of blue states are
Absolutely
against it, especially
fucking
teachers' unions are against it because
not. Absolutely fucking no. Are you out of your mind? Oh yeah, you just get a little voucher and you can put your money wherever you think that it should go for a school. It will make the problem 10 times worse. Nice schools can't hold spots for everybody. So all the rich people are going to rush to the nice school with all their money, and then the tax money is all going to like hold on. What the fuck? I've never heard of school choice. School choice? What is school choice? School choice is a term that represents the many ways students access their K-12 education. Many still choose their schools by buying a home in their desired district, but today's parents engage in school choice in more diverse and ever-evolving ways. Oh shit! Sorry. What is school choice? Let's take a look.
What is school choice? It's not as complicated as you might think. School choice is a way governments can give parents back their education tax dollars to choose whatever educational options they think best fit their kids. Here's how it works. It starts with you and your community. Together, you all pay income taxes, sales taxes, or both. Those taxes become the revenue the state uses to pay for education. From there, the state splits up those funds to all families based on their children's needs. Families can then use that money to purchase whichever schooling options
Based on their children's needs. See, whenever people say something like that sounds good, and then they put a little extra on the end of there, we split the money up. We split the money up between all families based on their children's needs. Now, what does that mean?
public, private, charter, homeschool, online, or otherwise, they think are best for their kids. An educated child has greater homeschool, online, or otherwise
But wait a minute.
purchase whichever schooling options.
So they're going to purchase a whole schooling option, but private school wouldn't be a thing anymore because you would be paying your tax dollars to the private school, so that would now be a public school. Unless, of course, they're still allowed to turn people away based on certain criteria, right? So I'm going to continue this, but that's what I'm thinking so far.
Public, private, charter, homeschool, online, or otherwise, they think are best for their kids. An educated child has greater opportunities to succeed and to bring that success back to their community. Like to know how school choice looks today? Although it is not available to all families right now, there are 4 ways many states offer parents choice.
I am skeptical about this. Okay, here, let me go pee really quick. And then I'll say what my last thoughts on that were. Hold on. Okay, so yeah, Coalfire saying this is a way to further defund public schools. Yes, so you're going to allow rich people who should be paying the most in taxes. So your upper middle class people who are paying more in taxes than the poor people who have to use public schools. You're allowing them to take their tax money out and then give it to the private schools to pay for their private school tuition, and so the tax money from the public schools goes directly to their private institution instead of the public schools that all the poor people have to go to. Is what I'm seeing.
Is taking money away from the public schools and creating more of a competitive market.
Right. That's why I wouldn't raise my hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. I understand.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah, we should be making schooling for children into a competitive market. This is what conservatives are arguing for. Oh my God. I want to cease to exist sometimes.
Sometimes with school choice, it gets a little bit tricky, right? My first class the first day, I had 25 students. By day 2, I had 19, because 6 parents switched out of the class because they saw me, and they were like, there's no freaking way, before I even got a word in.
So 6 parents decided transphobia is okay for me.
A parent, I would want to know, like, do you not think that that is okay or they're right to withdraw when they see you? Because ultimately, you're probably an
No, it's not okay.
I appreciate that.
I have no doubt about that, but I think we get into muddy waters when we start trying to take that choice away from the parent.
Do I think that it is okay for a parent to see me and go, not around my kid? No, I don't think that's okay. I feel like that's really crossing the line.
Oh, yeah.
Because you are, for lack of better words, discriminating against me openly. That's like seeing a black teacher and being like, there's no way. It is the same.
Which
it is the same.
will happen, by the way. If school choice was a thing, that will happen. 100%.
It's
Not
still
quite.
the right of the parent to make that decision as to whether or not they want their child to learn from you.
Okay.
Like, it's still that parent's right. Like, you can disagree with their motivations, their motives, their ideas,
Would you
but
say
it
that
is still their child.
This started around school choice. Even if you want to decide on a different learning environment for your kid, the people that do not have the option to send their child to a different place, the bar should not be so low. And that's my concern with school choice, is that sometimes people think that if everyone flees to the suburbs, who is teaching in these schools where everyone has decided they don't want their tax dollars going to? And that's one of the big concerns. With funding of education being the way that it's set up, it essentially makes it so that the people that are stuck with these as their options don't end up with as good a school, and everyone deserves to have their kid go to a good school.
Well, if there's school choice, they won't be stuck with those options. They can have other
Yes.
options. That's the whole point.
No, you don't. That's not true. People will still be stuck to the school that's closest to their home. Have you ever heard of kids having to walk to work because their parents are working? That's the easiest one right there. You walk to school because it's close to your house and your parents are working. You cannot choose to go to a school farther away. Do you think choosing to go to a school farther away, they're going to send the bus out across town for you? They're not going to do that. That's the most surface level. That's the most surface level point I can make about not being able to choose schools. There's a million other reasons why, I'm sure, but right there, just access to the school would make it impossible for a lot of families. When I was in school, I walked to school. When I was in elementary school, I walked to school. It was a few blocks away, and my parents were working. We were poor. There's no way, if we had school choice and there was like a nicer school a few more miles away, there's no way we wouldn't have made it. We wouldn't have made it.
Of that. Also, it is the school district's job to appropriately use those budgets. Most of the budget in the schools aren't going to the teachers. We got cafeteria workers, janitors, all of these people that are getting.
Oh my God. I'm losing my fucking mind. Yeah. Fire the janitors that keep the school clean. Just have a dirty fucking school. Fire the cafeteria workers. You know where most poor kids get their meals? Fucking school, public school. If it wasn't for public school serving breakfast and lunch, kids would go fucking hungry. This is, it's blowing my mind right now.
Getting paid.
It used to be 9 out of 10 people that were employees of schools and districts were teachers. Now it's 50-50.
Yes.
So there is some mismanagement of funds in this country.
No, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? There's more kids. Listen, here's why there's less of a teacher to non-teacher employee ratio, okay? When you have a teacher with 15 kids in her class, or his class, or their class, doesn't matter. When you have a teacher with 15 kids in their class, every teacher only has 15 kids in their class, right? Then you need a certain amount of janitors, okay? And a certain amount of cafeteria workers, all right? Not that, you don't need that many because there's not that many kids. Average class size is huge. Like, hold on, I could probably find a graph of this. Hold on, I don't like to blind Google on stream. Class size. Average class size. Hold on just a second. I'm trying to find it by year. I'm not finding what I'm needing. I'm not finding what I'm needing. That's fine. Listen, the reason why the ratio has changed is because there's more kids, but they're stuffing them into the same classrooms with the same amount of teachers. That's why.
Actually fund our kids really well.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Too many administrators.
Just to go back a little bit to like when you guys are raising your hands about the different choices, you raised your hand for homeschooling. Can you talk us through like why do you think homeschooling is the best option?
If we look at the history of this country, a lot of people were homeschooled. A lot of our founders were homeschooled.
That is so stupid. I am so sorry. Yeah, a lot of the founding fathers were homeschooled. What the hell are you talking about? What the hell are you on about? A lot of our founding, yeah, they were homeschooled by torchlight because we didn't have fucking electricity. It's like education has changed since this is why I'm always talking about like get the Constitution out of the conversation because it's an old fucking piece of paper. This is about morality, but it's also about like when people are like, "Oh, our founding fathers were learned this way." It's like, okay, yeah, George Washington has slaves' teeth for dentures. Also, do you think we should be doing that? If you think that everything the founding fathers did should be what we do, it's a bad point. It doesn't fucking matter what old presidents did, what old colonizers did. It doesn't fucking matter.
They only went to school till 3rd grade, a lot of them. And I think what has happened is parents have decided that the government...
What's the point you're trying to make? Yeah, wait, what's the point she's trying to make? Yeah, homeschooling's better because the founding fathers did it and they only went to 3rd grade. Is she implying that they had like a high school education by the time 3rd grade came around? Like they read books sometimes and learned minimal things and then started working. Because that's how it was. Like you had to help your family work.
Is going to do a better job at raising their children than themselves. We have also come to a place where school is taking up the majority of our day. And we have this mistrust of parents that they can't educate their own children. And I think that that's wrong. I think that a lot of parents, and if you look at homeschool data, like my friend Phil right here, he's got 7 kids and he's homeschooling them all. And actually homeschool.
Whoa, Keezus. What's up, buddy? How you doing? Welcome in. Here, let me give you a proper shout out. Shout out, Keezus _ Hi. What were you doing on stream, buddy? Jesus, put that away. What the hell?
That's a big game, man.
Yeah. Whoa, welcome in everybody. I appreciate you for being here. Thank you for the raid. Awesome. Plays that was a long. Whoa. Thank you for the bits here. I appreciate that. Twerk. Thank you for thank you to Slapshot Matt for the follow. I appreciate that. Welcome in. How we doing? Hold on. Sorry. What were you doing on stream? Sorry. I'm winded from throwing it back. You're let me see. Oh, you're playing Pokemon? Meow! Whoa! Keezus, thank you for the bits.
Work.
I was playing Pokemon. Nice. Good. Well, you actually came in at the perfect time. By the perfect time, I mean we are in the middle of watching a debate from Vice about the U.S. education system. I have finished my first drink, so I'm extra fired up about it. And we're putting in our input on it. He's doing wild Nuzlocke stuff. Of course you're doing wild Nuzlocke. You're a pokey freak, aren't you? You're a true pokey freak. Slapshot Matt,
Your
thank you
stash
for
is so
the
swag.
Whoa, thank you for the bits. I appreciate that. The stash is swag. Let's go. I love that. I had a friend that did a Nuzlocke. I had a friend who streamed only one Nuzlocke and then never did any streams. He's just like, I'm gonna stream a Nuzlocke and then I'm done. And then he stuck to that. I love that. But yeah, thank you so much for the raid. Yeah, I'm gonna refill my drink in a little bit here, but we're talking about the education system. I think the last point that was really made was that the best way to educate your kids, I'm not joking. This is the point she made. The best way to educate your kids is homeschooling because that's what the founding fathers did. So that's the point she made. And then she's like, yeah, they only had to go to school until like third grade. And I'm like, wait, what are you arguing for here? I'm a teacher. I love that. Then you probably have some good insight on this. And you'll probably get very upset about what some of these people are saying. But let's jump in. Let's watch some more.
Kids are turning out really well. And he's homeschooling them all. And actually, homeschool kids are turning out really well.
I think you bring up a lot of very valid points, but I have to say, and I just want your opinion on this, I would never homeschool my own kids. And I want my kids to be smarter than me, than I ever was. How am I going to have a child that is smarter and does better than I do if I'm their only teacher?
You grow alongside your child.
Okay.
I think as a teacher, I feel like I've learned the most in my life as a teacher. Like more so than in college.
I don't disagree with that, by the way. I don't disagree with somebody like saying like they learn alongside their child. Like you learn a lot by doing. So I don't totally disagree with that. I will say that I do not like that lady. She's like a very, very much so a conservative, but that is one decent point. I love that people are like, why would we make any progress in 250? I know, that's what I just got done. Like right before the raid, I just got done ranting about the founding fathers did it idea needs to be thrown out the window. It is an invalid point. If you're making that point, then you can make a point about a million fucking things, okay? Our founding fathers were horrible fucking people, okay? So if you're saying, oh, the founding fathers were homeschooled, and that's fine, and that's great, then it's like, founders of these nuts, exactly. But if you think that everything that they did was good, then you think that everything that they did was good. And that is factually not true. We all know that.
No, so parents becoming teachers is actually good for them as well.
Okay.
And even in the public schools, a lot of teachers are relying on the lesson plans. But speaking from experience, I got to give the credit where it's due. My wife does the homeschooling, and I've watched that process of her learning alongside, to make sure when they ask these questions, I'm getting knowledge on the material as well so I can help you get through it. Nothing replaces that value, that bonding time that she gets to have with the kids.
Right.
There is one thing that's really nice about homeschooling. Okay, let me actually read this really quick. Students that are homeschooled can be taught better. However, they're taught in a sheltered, closed-off way. That means they never learn what life is like. Christ, it's embarrassing to think that you can teach your child better than a system hundreds of years in the making. Not perfect, but crafted to give the child what they need. That is absolutely true. That's one of the biggest things about homeschooling is like you don't learn... Like, you can learn what you need to learn in school. Like, you can know things, but you don't know. Like, you get a lot of, social experience with public school. Like, things like that. Like, a lot of people who are homeschooled from start to finish of school, they're unable to function well in outside of the home. They can't function well outside of the home, basically. But that's not to say that like homeschooling can't be great. I know that there are people who are homeschooled that they meet up daily with other people who are homeschooled and like they have social interaction and things like that, which is great. And also another plus side to homeschooling is that you have an opportunity to let the students lead some of the curriculum, which is really nice. There's a fluidity there. But that being said, if we had more funding in public schools, that could be an option for our public schools as well, where groups of students can express more what they need and what they want in their education, and that could be implemented. But the fact of the matter is, the U.S. education system is so severely underfunded that none of that stuff can happen. All the complaints that conservatives have about the U.S. education system are a direct result of their underfunding the education system.
That's a big game, man.
Thank you so much for the follow, Kiana T. I appreciate that. That's a big game, man. It certainly is. If you're here, it certainly is.
Taught high school for 6 years, and I quit. And I'm a stay-at-home mom with my own kids. So we're a one-income family. We're lucky enough to be able to live off of my husband's salary. Would you say that most homeschool families have one parent working?
I do think the statistics show that that is the case.
It's like the only way to do it well.
Yeah, and this is an issue like that she's bringing up here, is that most families, a majority of families that have children in the U.S. do not have a single income house. It's a double income house because they don't make enough money with one person. So they don't have the option to homeschool if they wanted to. And that's a lot of where my frustration comes from with debates like this, is that like a lot of people frame these debates as if everybody has a choice in where their education comes from, whereas most people do not. While a lot of the education department is underfunded, I see a lot of the funds actually being misused more than not. Why am I struggling to get by / support my band program, but upper admin makes 6 figures plus? It's true. Yeah, it's absolutely true. The funding and the allocation of funds is atrocious. It's horrible. Okay? It's horrible. Our education system is ranked fairly low worldwide. Like, and we are the richest country in the world. The facts are, we're not putting the money where it needs to go to get our kids better education. No, you're fine, Slapshot Matt. I appreciate it. I appreciate it a lot. I love to hear other perspectives. So it's like, if that money got put where it belongs, which is with the teachers and in the classrooms, okay? Like even in infrastructure or something, we could do a lot more with that. And in other countries, what was it? I think it was Sweden. I was watching a video the other day. I think the Swedish education system, they actually require educators, K through 12, like educators. They do 8 years in college to be like an expert on education, and they get paid extremely well. And also their school is paid for by the government. We'll also put that in there. But the reason why that is because of how important that job is. Educating children is a job that's so important. It deserves to be one of the higher paid jobs in society, and it should be funded better. But not only is like teaching is kind of a thankless job in the US. It really, really is. It's underpaid and it's thankless. Like what teachers can make like $30K in some places, which is like fucking like bad money. Yeah, it's just bad.
Pretty much. And, another misconception, though, is that they think it's a matter of income and homeschool families have to be rich and et cetera. And I think the average homeschool family makes like $65K.
Come on. Yeah, it's a big misconception, like that homeschool families like have to be rich. Like the average homeschool family makes probably like only 65K. Like what? 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 That's a lot of money. There are so most people make less money than that. I believe I shouldn't have to spend half a year working a job for free just to get my degree to be paid poorly. The student teaching system is broken and hellish. Yeah, it's horrible. It's so bad. It's literally our own government spitting on you. They don't care. Unless it has to do with furthering the lives of rich people, they do not care. In fact, um, I believe it was one of Richard Nixon's staffers that was talking about the uh that there's nothing more dangerous than like an educated poor person. And it's true. And it's like that is he showed us something beyond the veil there. And it's like our political system, everything is meant to make sure that people aren't more educated. Many homeschool families are less concerned about teaching their kids well and more about sheltering them from information. That's true. That's 100% true also. Like, why are you choosing to homeschool your children? I think that there's a percentage of them that honestly think that they can give them a better education and a better experience. There is, for sure. But most of them, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Parents' rights, libertarians. Oh my god, it's just like one frustrating person after another.
So the reality is they're scaling back and making sacrifices for this lifestyle because they value what is coming out of it.
So let's just say that for the people that homeschool isn't an option, what is for so many people it's not, I do not think that school choice is the way to go about that, which I know is a lot of people's answer to that.
Can we just get Sean in here? What are your thoughts on this?
School choice gives people an exit ramp. You get to send your kid to a school that best fits what you think is best for their development. At the end of the day, it's kitchen table.
That's true, Sierra. That's true. Like the rich parents that care more about education and don't care about indoctrination, which there's a lot of overlap there, but also like they would just send them to a private school. That's 100% true. Which is exactly why the school choice thing is like fucking bogus, because all these like upper middle class parents would take all of their tax dollars that they get refunded and just put them directly into a private school, and the public schools that are less fortunate than them are the ones who desperately need it. See what he has to say really quick.
What are your thoughts on this?
School choice gives people an exit ramp. You get to send your kid to a school that best fits what you think is best for their development. At the end of the day, it's kitchen table conversations about we've worked hard to raise a family. We want to spend our money in a way that best fits our child, best fits our family. And when you don't have school choice, you do make those trade-offs. There are real consequences there.
Yeah, but again, just really quickly touching on this because Desmond in the back row made this point already. School choice also opens up the availability of discrimination in schools. People can and will discriminate against people using school choice, which will happen. Here, give me just one moment. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. Let's continue. Let's see what this guy has to say.
The school is considered one of those shared spaces, one of those last kind of shared spaces where you might bump into someone who maybe comes from a different background than you, has a different ideology than you. What do you lose if you homeschool and then you're not putting yourself in these kind of situations?
What you lose is negative influences. One of the biggest things I think when it comes to homeschool is keeping my kids away from your bad kids. We've went and taken our children to pride parades. And you know what I mean? We've been there, we've been loving, and we showed support to the people there. But at the same time, we explain our views on the matter that we believe marriage is between a man and a woman. And from experience and talking to people, I understand.
Listen, I need to stop allowing myself to get to a mental space where I think for a second it's not going to boil down to homophobia, transphobia, etc. And it always does. And I'm like, for a second, I'm like, maybe not this time. And it always does. That's the rule. It's always about discrimination. It's always about discrimination.
Understand that a lot of people who choose that lifestyle, it is based on trauma. A lot of were molested or sexually assaulted as children. So I don't think it's okay for me to teach to my children that this is something normal we ought to accept when it doesn't progress society. We would not be able to procreate if everybody were to choose that lifestyle. So I think it's okay for me as a parent to say, hey,
that's bad.
This exists, that exists, but this is our view on it, and this is how we want to present it to them.
Do you think it's somewhat problematic?
This is such like, that's like, I mean, I could go in on that, but there's no reason to. You know what I mean? It's like, that's such like an old way of thinking.
That you're going like, well, this is our viewpoint, that marriage is between a man and a woman because we can't move society forward with gay couples. Like, we have factually proven that incorrect. I can actually tell you that gay parents on average make exceptional parents and do exceptional things with kids because they adopt, and they only adopt kids when they are financially capable, which actually makes kids of gay parents actually more successful and academically competent. So gay parents actually are very good at moving society forward, and we have the statistics to prove
Could that be a long-term solution, though, if a large population chose to choose that lifestyle? There would be no children to adopt.
No one is choosing this lifestyle.
Oh, good God. Oh, good God. School choice is important. However, unless you are utilizing a system designed to give your student what they need, homeschooling is nothing more than sheltering from truths of the world. I'm not even against homeschooling. It's an option for many people for many different reasons, but to keep your kids separate from your bad kids is just keeping them away from the world. Yeah. This is our view on this. Yeah, it's his view and his wife's view. I will assume the gender of his spouse, because it's pretty clear. And they're telling their children that should be their view as well. It's very strange. You know, the same people that say that the gays are indoctrinating your children are the very people who are indoctrinating their children in their beliefs. Just like I indoctrinate you on how to avoid the ad break in my stream. There's 4 different ways here. The first way is by spending $5 a month. You get access to all the emotes in an ad-free viewing experience. The second way is by attaching your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. You get 1 free Prime sub a month. You can use that on me or anybody else, really. Third way is by getting gifted a sub by a generous member of the community. And the fourth way that is unique to here is if you save out 35,000 gravy globs, aka channel points, you can redeem Gift Me a Sub. And I will gift you a sub personally as a thank you for being here. Here's the ad break now. I love that his argument about the need to continue procreating even though we're facing an overpopulation problem. If there was a place to teach them about these kinds of things, Lamau. I've been seeing the whack argument a lot lately that the gay agenda is going to destroy society because we'll reach a point where we can't procreate. It's so brain dead, constantly screaming. I don't understand. It's not even like It's weird. Whoa! A sub up.
You're making me blush. Sub up. You know I like you so much. A sub up. And hear me out. All I wanna know is, can I eat a sub?
Okay, listen. Thank you so much, Slapshot Matt, for the sub. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. The argument that the gay agenda is going to destroy society because nobody will be able to procreate is so funny to me, because there's still so many fucking straight people. That will never go away. In what world does somebody think that's going to go away? But also, like, it boils down to this, like, brain dead thinking where they're like, people are indoctrinating you into being gay. But that's not the truth either. Like, you're just being told that it's okay to be gay, and that is okay, but it's not making straight people be gay. It's just letting gay people be gay. It's stupid. But, like, when their argument is that gay people don't exist and that it's a choice, then you can't argue with them at all, even though that is not an argument based in fact in any sort of way. That's why it's so impossible to talk to like diehard conservatives. It's because their arguments aren't based in reality, and you're never going to change their mind. You're never ever going to change their mind. Their arguments are not based in reality. They're based in made up things that they made up themselves. Bigotry is stronger than facts. I mean, yeah, people decide, they choose their biases, and then they dig their heels into the ground, and then that's it. I mean, you know, no one person is going to change their mind. You know, especially like older people and things like that. Hey, Amber, welcome in. So you just do your best. You just have to do your best. Advocate for what you believe in, you know?
That's an opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna
There
jump back.
would be no children
Okay,
to
so first of
adopt.
all, no one is choosing this lifestyle.
That's an opinion.
Okay,
It's not an opinion. It's just.
Okay, sorry.
Did you choose to be straight, sir?
I've been teaching for 15 years.
So
and
have I.
will say that there is some kids now that are going for that community that are doing it not out of a genuine, and there's pockets of them too. Like you'll notice like friend groups of girls that will all of a sudden decide that they're now trans.
The idea of LGBT
so brain dead. The reason why people are in groups in being trans or queer in other ways is because they find community in that. I wouldn't even say it's making it socially acceptable to be gay. It's just to be socially acceptable to be not following Christian beliefs. I mean, that's part of it. I mean, that's part of why you know, queerness is wrong in the US. I mean, everywhere really, but yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. Like there were fewer left-handed people before Christians stopped beating their kids for thinking it was the sign of the devil. Exactly. There aren't more left-handed people now. It's just that people were just allowed to be left-handed. It might seem like there's more gay people now because people are allowed to be gay, but that's just because people were pretending to not be gay because it wasn't allowed.
LGBTQ being trending and the idea of teaching kids that being gay is a choice, those are two very
So
different
I'll answer that. Yes, I chose to be straight. Absolutely.
So
When?
you could,
Can you tell us about it?
so you
Did you consider
actually
the
you
alternative?
could be attracted to me if you wanted to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
And let me explain. I have seen
This is
transgender
copium.
people who I thought were born female that were very attractive. I didn't know. Now, once I find out
Come on, dude. Come on. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. Come on. Once I found out that I decided they're not hot anymore. It's like, shut the fuck up, dude. That's such cope. Come on. That's such cope.
Oh, that's not what you are. I am choosing not to pursue that. That's what.
Bro, this is such cope. Come on.
What I mean. So yes, you can be attracted to someone that is of another gender.
Let's talk about what do you think should be taught?
He goes, do I have gay thoughts sometimes? Yes. Do I choose not to have them anymore? No, I still have them, but I'm not doing it.
Taught about gender identity in school. What do you think is being taught?
I want to go back to something you were saying earlier that's related to this about like you're seeing trends. And
I also want to it's the same story every time, so true. I do also want to point out that it's not gay in any way to be attracted to a trans person. Do I think about kissing boys with my tongue? Yeah. Do I pretend I don't after I find out they're boys? Duh. I mean, they're not boys. He was talking about being attracted to women. He was talking about being attracted to women, which is not gay, by the way.
I am too, right? Last semester, when I was teaching, I had a trans kid in every classroom, and I was like, whoa, when I started teaching,
It was one in school.
there was none,
Yeah,
right?
one
And
in
I'm like,
school,
this
yeah.
is, wow,
And they
okay?
were really for it, too.
And
they, went for it.
And I'm hearing you that is
What?
something I...
What? This lady is like really into this conversation.
Like, this is-
They're really for it
And
too.
they were really for it, too.
And-
they, went for it.
And I'm
does that
hearing you
mean?
that is something I'm seeing too in the classrooms. Fair, okay. Now, I'm not gonna presume to be in the heads of those kids and to understand like what's real for them or whatever, but I will tell you this, historically speaking, a disproportionate number of kids who are gay, who are trans, who are any of the LGBTQI, fill in the letters, right? Didn't live to see adulthood. Maybe that's why we don't have an older generation of trans adults because
I
a lot of
attended
them,
a funeral of a trans student last month.
a lot of them didn't make it. And so when I hear about kids like feeling comfortable enough to try expressing something where maybe they wouldn't be able to do in other spaces. And I understand that maybe that's not what you want for your kids, but I'm thinking about the most marginalized and vulnerable people. And unfortunately, statistically, for our queer youth, disproportionately they fall in that category.
Mind you, with the whole concept of school choice, I'm all for parents who agree with what you're teaching, sending their children to you. I just think ultimately it should be within the.
Yeah, I just think that we should defund the trans schools. Okay.
Parent to make that choice.
What do you think should be taught in sex ed?
I think it should be health education, yes. I taught middle school and high school, and they started giving it to my students in 7th grade, and I have students come back to me traumatized because I think sex ed has gone away from what it was. There are some lessons, like for example, they have a lesson where the kids in 3rd grade, in the New Jersey curriculum, there's a picture of a woman's spread eagle, and they're learning all the different body parts of the clitoris and the stuff. Every child is different. Some are not developmentally ready for this or mature enough for it.
I grew up with abstinence education.
That's pretty rough.
Where we didn't talk about sex ed until middle school, but mostly 10th grade and high school. But I think that middle school is far too late to be talking about sex ed. And it's not because
That's such a wild argument. Like, yeah, there were kids that were learning about anatomy. They're not ready for that. When will they be ready? Like, people need to know this shit. This is how you get weird people. Come on.
I think that 2nd graders are, wanting to be promiscuous, but like having sex ed scaffolded because it is a preventative measure against sexual assault, often being done in the home.
Just because that happens in the home doesn't mean that we need to label all parents as not capable of teaching sex to their children and giving it to
course not.
teachers.
But they're not capable. That's the thing, is like you can't just it doesn't matter. It's just not teaching kids how they get is how they get groomed. I mean, that's true. Has anyone ever had a good sex ed experience? I was taught it by a preacher for one day in 5th grade and told I was going to go to hell if I had sex outside of marriage. Yeah, no, they were still doing abstinence when I was in high school. I don't know if they do that anymore, but this happened multiple times to me while I was in high school. Multiple times I would show up to class and there would be some weird lady in there and we would sit down and she goes, "I'm here today to talk to you about not having sex. My boyfriend had sex and he had to be born again, and now neither of us have sex and we're both sexless." It's like, this is so fun. This is way more perverted than just telling me what it is. Like, telling me about it. This is a way more perverse thing that you're doing. Like, doing this weird sexless thing is weird and gross. And it was uncomfortable for everyone. Wait, we had a period tape with just the girls in 4th grade and then learned the vague concept of sex in 5th grade? I mean, that sounds right. It's just like, middle school was all abstinence only. We would have to make lists of things to do we could do with our partner other than having sex. We could play Mancala. We could draw swords. We could jump rope. We could watch Batman and Robin on VHS tape. Those are the only things I know how to do. That's sex ed complete. What the fuck? Come on.
But teachers, for a lot of children, are the only trusted adults, and it is incredibly dangerous to remove teachers who are trained professionals to deal with these crises in the home from the situation. And that's just like a funnel for child abuse.
I think a huge thing that's missing in education in the schools when it comes to sex ed is consent.
Yes.
You know, that's not being taught at all, to my understanding. I never learned it in schools, and that creates consequences when you look at the situations that are going on here.
I think that we have such a hypersexualized society. Obviously, kids are having sex younger. They're hooking up younger. It's just reality. I would rather those...
This argument is so fucking awful, dude. It's not. It's the same. It's the same that it's always been. It is the same that it's always been. It's the same. It's the same. It's the same. It's the same. You're just saying that because you're seeing it, because there's the internet. It's the same. I remember when I wanted to play an imaginary RPG in my head, I would imagine random things as enemies, defeat them, level up, and often transforming my character with abilities and shit. That is so off topic, by the way. Yeah, I thought that was going to have something to do with this, but it didn't at all. Yeah, just as a little side here, I remember this little game I used to play with myself. What the fuck? Okay, all right, thank you for sharing. I literally had a student come up to me last week because they were told by another student, "You're going to burn in hell forever. God doesn't love you because you're a F slur." Yep, that'll happen. That will happen. That will absolutely happen. Still happens, obviously. You're telling me it's happening. It happened when I was in school. To a lot of people. Happened when I was in school to people who weren't even gay. Which is probably still happens the same way, you know.
Those individuals sex younger, they're hooking up younger. It's just reality. I would rather those individuals, and also from a...
I love it when conservatives say it's just reality, which is them. It's a way of them saying that is what I've seen and what I have perceived, and is not based in facts in any sort of way.
Life perspective, know how to have safe sex and preventative sex that prevents pregnancies, than them to just go around willy-nilly just doing whatever they want.
So there's a lot of middle schoolers in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that are getting pregnant at earlier ages, and we're starting to rank like the highest nationally in terms of middle school pregnancies. And that's because a lot of middle schoolers are, again, like you said, like getting sexually involved earlier,
Matt.
whatever
It's the Cardi B music.
By solidarity moment.
Whatever it is,
It's the Cardi B music? No shot you said that. Okay, please tell me I misheard that.
again, like you said, like getting sexually involved earlier, whatever
It's the Cardi B music.
Whatever.
What the fuck? Oh my god. What the fuck? It's the Cardi B music. Cardi B is indoctrinating our kids. Oh my god. It's the Cardi B music. It's the Cardi B music. Like that is so fucking good. Oh my god. I have to watch that one more time. Hold on.
Whatever it, schoolers are, again, like you said,
He's just so serious about it. He's so serious about it.
like getting sexually involved earlier, whatever
It's
it
the
is,
Cardi B music.
whatever it is, it's happening, and we need to be able to address it, and students need to be able to be equipped with the skills to understand how to have safe sex. If parents aren't having those conversations at home and middle schoolers are getting pregnant anyways, like why can we not include that in the school so they have some form of information?
Again, it just goes back to the fact that so many of this issue is just not black and white. It really is 50 Shades of Gray, because like there is just no one-size-fits-all approach to the way we educate our children.
What age do you think sex ed should be taught in schools? Like starting.
You came back to the Cardi. It's the Cardi B music. It's the Cardi B music. Hold on. Here, I'll show you one more time.
Schoolers are getting pregnant anyways, like why can we not include that in the school so they have some form of middle schoolers need to be able to address earlier, whatever
It's the Cardi B music.
Whatever it is, it's happening, and we need to be able to address it, and students need to be
I
able
can't
to
get enough of that.
to understand how to have safe sex. If parents aren't having those conversations
so
at
good.
home and middle schoolers are getting pregnant anyways, like why can we not include that in the school so they have some form of information?
Again, it just goes back to the fact that so many of this issue is just not black and white. It really is 50 Shades of Gray, because like there is just no
What's
one-size-fits-all
on this
approach to
guy's
the way we educate our
mind?
children.
What age do you think?
How does your mind
sex
work,
ed should be
dude?
taught in schools? Like starting at what age?
Probably at some point during secondary school, because if we're talking about it scientifically, kids need to understand that science is a body of knowledge that we're building together. This is what we currently understand about human anatomy.
As far as like
Timestamp. It's somewhere around 24 minutes, and it's the Here's the link. It's the Cardi B music.
like actually getting into intercourse and the details of all of that.
It's like
from my
24
experience,
minutes.
I usually at least start giving that understanding around 7, 8 years old.
Yeah, I think that sex ed is a lifelong discussion, and it starts, I mean, as soon as you can communicate. Now, that doesn't mean that you are giving a high schooler's curriculum to a 3-year-old, but I'm already talking about consent and using proper anatomical language with my children, and that's where it begins and it ends. In adulthood.
I think as long as it happens in a way such that, to the point you were making, that like kids are being protected, that's what I would say we prioritize.
I would say go back to the way it was when I was in elementary school. They separated the boys and the girls, and the girls watched a video about their period and all these things. The guys watched another video. Yeah, it was health class. And then we didn't talk about sex education, the actual contraception, all of those things.
We should go back to the way it was when I was in school because sex makes me uncomfortable, unbearably uncomfortable, anxiety up the wazoo. I want to make it so that we're in different rooms, okay? The girls watch a video about periods or something, and then we watch a cartoon in the other room.
Until high school.
I think we need to separate health education from sex education. Health education should be lifelong. No sex ed for now, the way it's being taught in a lot of these states.
Let's talk a little bit about other things that fall under the responsibility of what teachers do in the classrooms. What is CRT?
Critical race theory in reality is this complex legal institution that relates race to all of the institutions of America since its founding and since its birth. And it's something that I've never learned about in my classroom. I don't have any friends that have learned about it in their classrooms. It's something that's often taught on the graduate level or the undergraduate level. So I think that
I'm going to tell you something right now. Do not let this guy in the gray polo cook about this. I'm incredibly uncomfortable about sexuality, and I want all children to feel like that. I mean, that's effectively what it is, you know?
it's kind of a like not a great term to use in reference to conversations surrounding K to 12 education, because it's not actually something that's even on like the docket for consideration.
That was a perfect description. I could not have done a better description if I tried.
It is in our schools. I saw the lessons that contain critical race theory in California.
It said the words critical
yes,
race.
It said the words
Which
critical
is,
race
and
theory.
and
Yes.
she's not wrong.
Yeah.
She's not wrong because
Yeah.
some states have implemented CRT into their curriculum. It means different things for different districts. So this is about to be a very complicated conversation.
So in my district, and this is in California, they're requiring a class called ethnic studies in order to graduate. And in the class, they were taught about critical race theory. They were taught the definition. They were taught to analyze school policy through critical race theory, and they were taught how critical race theory is beneficial to analyze the U.S. It's basically like this idea that every institution in America, every institution, that interaction that you have has some sort of element of race, and usually there's a hierarchy of oppressed versus oppressor. And there are kids in America in K through 12 that are being taught that, and I'm so tired of people saying that's not happening when it is. And then when I expose it, I'm being called racial slurs and names for exposing it. And I'm like, come on, guys. Like, so I think we need to stop saying it's not being taught in America and change it to should it be taught in America, because it is. It is. There are teachers that are teaching this.
So there's a recent bill that was passed in Texas called Senate Bill 3, and it completely revamped Texas's curriculum standards and basically eliminated all requirements.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like she's saying truths. She's saying truths and then saying that it shouldn't be taught. She's saying things that are true and then saying that that shouldn't be taught. Because it's true that racism exists. Well, I mean, that's conservatism. Conservatism is a brain rot that tells you racism actually has been eliminated a long time ago. That shitty teacher loves to widen her eyes and make truths sound wrong.
And it completely revamped Texas's curriculum standards and basically eliminated all requirements for teaching of history education in Texas that relate to diverse perspectives. So teachers can go through the entirety of K through 12 education without ever talking about slavery as an institution, even though it's thoroughly ingrained into just the history, just the basic facts of America's history.
I mean, not even America's history. It is still legal in the United States. Slavery is still legal in the United States. Slavery is still legal in the United States. Under the 13th Amendment, slavery is still legal in the United States. Slaves. There are slaves in the United States.
My understanding, I don't see the banning of slavery being taught in
It's
Texas.
not the banning.
Yeah.
The issue is that it's no
'cause
longer.
I know that bill.
It's no longer required.
I know
and
that bill, and I know it also states that you're not supposed to teach it in a way that causes mental anguish.
So it does not ban it. It doesn't ban the talking of the institution of slavery, but it does create a loophole for teachers to never touch on the topic at any point in a child's education. And that is something that is happening. And it's something that is happening to peers of mine. It is something that is happening predominantly in communities outside of, I guess, my home city of Dallas, but having traveled and having talked to students across the state of Texas, I can confidently say that there are teachers who are not teaching very key facts of American history because critical race theory conversations have so clouded the teaching of history as an entire, whole.
And it's not often called CRT anymore. It's called diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's called all of these different names and labels because of how divisive of a thing that it is. And I think at the end of the day, the big thing here is that let's teach Black history. No one on the right is saying, do not teach Black history, do not teach slavery. If we forget those lessons of the
They are. No one on the right is saying this. Yeah, yes, they are. They are saying that.
past, we're bound to repeat them. But what we're also saying is that stop being vindictive towards white people for being white. No one alive today was a slave, and no one alive today owned slaves. And so for white children to sit in a classroom and be blamed for sins that they themselves did not commit is wrong. For Black people, for Black children to sit in a classroom and be told that because of the color of your skin, well, it doesn't matter how hard you try, you're really not going to go that far because the society hates you, and then you have all of these structural barriers preventing your success. That is also wrong. That is not.
It's not wrong. Okay? It's not wrong. It's like we've gone through this talk before. We've gone through this talk before. And the systemic racism that happens in the US is very real. It happens every single day. It's all around us. But like the base smallest part of this, and this is where reparations come into play. But the base part of this is when the US was started, okay? A lot of white people had a lot of slaves, okay? The white people were building up wealth on the backs of their slaves, okay? When the slaves got freed, they got sent off into the world with no money. In fact, they were probably jailed and put back into slavery via the jail system or other ways, okay? While the white families were still making lots and lots of money. Those white families that were still making lots and lots of money are still very wealthy families in the United States. The people who are making zero money or negative money in the form of debt, aka former slaves or slaves, they are still mostly poor in the US because of the systems that are in place to keep poor people poor in the US. A direct quote from a student's parent. Why the fuck are you talking about black history and not white history? You are fucking spare parts, bud. Oh my Christ. Yeah, Texas is bad. Texas is bad. Florida legislature interferes with their education. Yeah. It's bad. It's bad.
Not lessons of hope. That is not lessons of opportunity, and I think that is what schools should be about. You can't create the next generation of leaders if they are never capable of seeing themselves as leaders, right? And I think like that is what CRT, unfortunately, in some ways, it does to young children of color.
What CRT means to me is obviously really different from what it means to you. And when you were saying before, like, kids are being anguished, I am not for kids feeling guilty about being born in the body they were born in. That's not what I taught.
What did you teach?
I mean, what did I teach? Well, for one thing, I taught about slavery. For another thing, I taught about like the ripple effects of slavery that we're still feeling today. In no way saying that people of color are less than or can't be, or no, not the opposite. Saying like people have persevered through things that I myself as a white person will never understand.
To really make this micro, the way I see it is there is no reason that kids of a certain age, right, because it's different teaching to a 6-year-old and teaching to a 17-year-old or in college, shouldn't learn about the history of slavery, the history of redlining, the history of Italians being lynched in this country, et cetera, looking at the facts and looking at some of the horrible things.
No fucking shot. This guy just said Italian rights. No shot. This guy just said Italian rights. Come on.
That have happened so we can learn from it. That is a
He said, what about critical Italian theory?
totally different conversation than when you've got instances like in Cupertino, California, where you have 7- and 8-year-olds who are being sat down and said, okay, time to do a privilege exercise.
That's what happened in
Let's
my-
write out, where you are on the power prism. Because that can create situations where students have warped views of themselves, especially if they're young. And I don't think it's appropriate because of the emotional impact it can have on folks.
If people are actually being sat down being like, if you're white, you're an oppressor and you're bad, that is not okay. That is not CRT. That is not critical race theory, and that is not culturally responsive teaching.
So it's not necessarily being blatantly said, but it's being implied over and over again.
Okay, there is definitely a way to teach CRT without it putting anybody down. But it's like, hey, just so y'all know.
I need a whistle emote for dog whistles. maybe I'll make a whistle emote. That'll be pretty funny.
If you're interested, there's different types of racism. There's the idea of racism as you treat someone differently because they're a certain color. And yeah, you could be racist to a white person if you don't like them for being white. Now, there's also systemic racism because we took a whole bunch of slaves from another country and brought them over here. But with that said, right, there's different types of racism here. And you can expose yourself to different ones at different times. But you don't have to make anyone feel bad. You just say the statistics the way they are. You're not saying one person's good, one person's bad. You just go over the definitions.
how should we be teaching race?
Well, I don't think we should be teaching white privilege in the classroom.
But teaching about race, like if you're
I have seen cross burnings from the South. Usually they were African American families, but one victim was an Italian immigrant family. I mean, if they're directly like people who have immigrated to the U.S., I can see that happening, but like also it's the discrimination that immigrants that are white face versus people who are born in the US that are not white is very, very, very different. If it exists sometimes. I mean, obviously it exists if you're telling me that it happened to somebody, but it's very different. There are some people so there's some wild people in the Midwest who are very discriminatory to that level, but it's not the same. It's not the same. Okay? If we're talking about critical race theory, Italians should not be included. Okay? I'm just going to say Italians are not included in critical race theory. Okay? Bad things have happened to Italians. Bad things have happened to other white people. Irish people, bad things have happened to them. But the fact of the matter is that they're not included in the category of of like non-white at this point. Let me also like talk about this for a second, because this is something that I have watched videos on and I have thought about, and a lot of the reason why those groups in particular were discriminated against at the forefront of the US like a long time ago is because they were not seen as white. Okay? That is a long since gone era. You know, Irish and Italian people not being seen as like regular white people is a long since gone era, and they are now in the in group of white people. Okay? So they are on the oppressor side of society now. So talking about discrimination against Italian people is, it's like you can talk about that happening, but without explaining why that happened in the first place and what happened after that, you're not getting to the root of what's going on. Because racism has always been and will always be your, in the US, I will say, will be your proximity to whiteness, okay? And so once you are included in the white group, then you are it's null. I just always think back to the moral oral bit where they deal with racism by doing a Band-Aid test. Can you please okay. Please please enlighten us a little more about the Band-Aid test. I have to go pee really quick, but please tell me what that is. Also, I love moral oral. But please tell me what that, I do not remember this. Okay. Okay.
Designing your ideal, setting.
Yeah. I think
How do you think race should be
Is
taught?
that because you think it doesn't exist, or because they can't handle it, or like
I think
what?
again, when it comes to the privilege discussion, like that's a great conversation for you to have with your child. But I don't think that taxpayer-funded hatred should be something that we allow in our schools.
Okay, bro, real talk though, like brother to brother. Teaching white privilege does not inherently mean black people are less. Factually incorrect, right? So
What is white privilege?
White privilege is the idea of white people may have benefits that fall in a societal structure. Because they are white, they have advantages, not such as, for example, if you send out a resume and you make one name a white name and the other name the classic.
What's a white name?
The white name was John, for example,
Come
right?
on.
I know Black Johns.
Okay, no, hear me out. Let me finish, okay? We did a study. I didn't do
I hate this guy so much. Hold on, where's that? I want to.
Such as, for example, if you send out a resume and you make one name a white name and the other name the classic.
What's a white name?
The white name was John, for example, right?
I know Black Johns.
Okay, no, hear me out.
This guy goes, check and mate. Okay, it's such a dumb argument. Yeah, Black Johns, but it's like you know what he's talking about. You absolutely know what he's talking about. Check. He goes, check and mate.
Hear me out. Let me finish, okay? We did a study. I didn't do this study, but we did a study where basically it was sent out 2 different resumes. They were the exact same. Okay. Right? One was given a classic white name. The other was given the name Jamal. Okay. The white name got 2 times more callbacks.
And
right?
I disagree with what you're saying.
But the idea of white privilege.
I disagree that study happened. I disagree. The study is false now.
Right? The idea that somebody that is white may have an advantage does not inherently mean you are teaching a black individual they cannot accomplish great things. That is completely separate. So we're talking about fake biological science and social science. We're not even in the same building at school right now.
Well, again, in regards to these like audit studies about like what is a white name, it's not necessarily that the name itself is white. It's that the perceiver, the person that is reading the resumes, for some strange reason, feels like when they see a white name that they are on their team or that there are positive stereotypes associated with people being white. That's what we're talking about when we talk about white privilege, is that, okay, if Oprah goes into a store, people might not assume that she can afford the things in that store because she's a black woman, even though she is Oprah. But if someone was white and goes into the same store, some people, because of their own racial stereotypes, might believe that they can afford it. And so that's what we're talking about when we're talking about white privilege. It's the sort of systemic benefits that you get from society.
No, I want to add, though, what you're describing, though, is discrimination. But to call it privilege when the reality is, let's say you take the white person who would be considered white trash, you would get the same result from them. So I don't think you can necessarily assume that that's because of race, and definitely can't call it.
Yeah, they would actually treat white trash the same as they treat Oprah. So your argument is null and void. Okay.
All
right.
Because a personal decision to be discriminatory.
Should it be taught to our children?
Right. And
should it be, and should we be telling black kids that you're going to get discriminated against because of the color of your skin, with loans, with redlining, blah, blah, blah?
There is a way to teach culturally responsive teaching without being narrow-minded, but it's hard. But just because it's hard doesn't mean we shouldn't do it.
Even if you talk about the systems in place that privilege different groups at different times in different spaces, I'm not saying that when you teach CRT, when you teach about the history of this country that has privileged certain groups and not privileged black people, I think it's important to acknowledge that black people have persevered throughout that. There's so much excellence. And I think that you do all kids a disservice when you say, okay, the history of black people in this country or the history of women in this country is that they were oppressed the whole time and they weren't resisting. And then the Civil War happens and, the slaves are freed and the black people just stopped resisting, economic injustice until the Civil Rights Movement. That is not the case of history in this country. And so I feel like it's very important if you're teaching about, race in this country.
Good night, Matt. Thank you for the sub. I appreciate you. And thank you for your insight on this topic. I really appreciate that. Have a good night. I hope to see you soon.
Deserve to get more if they work hard than another group of people if they work the same level.
And not just resistance, but resilience.
You mentioned history, and a lot of you are educators. I'm just curious, what do you think should or shouldn't be taught, when it comes to U.S. history in the K through 12 environment?
So I think it's just this really unbalanced way that they're teaching it right now, especially the ones that are proponents of CRT. It's creating this narrative that it's all white people to blame when there was so many people involved in the transatlantic slave trade. The British were actually the ones that stopped it and used their own resources to stop the slave trading ships from continuing. They went to Africa to stop them. Hey, stop bringing them to the coast because we're not buying them anymore. And so this idea that I just...
Yeah, actually the British stopped it, so we should stop talking about it now. The Oibruvs stopped it, so that makes sense about American history. Why? U.S. history. Why?
just feel bad for our children because they're not being taught it in a perspective that is holistic, basically.
And even to this day, there are slaves in Libya held captive by black people. So this is...
Slavery is illegal in the United States of America. There are slaves in the United States of America to this day. Slavery is legal in the United States of America.
Is not a white and black issue. But even with that said, I think leaving the public school system, me, even my peers, I mean, when we talk about this, we left with the idea that black history is slavery and Jim Crow. And we're rarely talking about the Reconstruction era, the amount of senators and politicians we had post-slavery. It was just so many things that we did after slavery that we're being told we can't do today somehow. That is just asinine.
There's no conservative in America who's saying don't teach slavery in the classrooms, but if you're going to talk about slavery, to his point, let's talk about Madam C.J. Walker. Let's talk about George Washington Carver. Let's talk about all these black people who have done some really incredible things that, in spite of quote-unquote systemic racism and all of these things, have achieved. Let's talk about Barack Obama. Let's talk about Kamala Harris. Why is every conversation that we have to have about black people in the classroom?
That is the only, I'm going to tell you right now, that is the only time that guy said, let's talk about Kamala Harris.
About us being in chains, downtrodden, and having no hope. That's a problem. And Black History Month, it's American history. Let's talk about that too. Those are important inspirational stories that are not taught in the classroom.
Do you think that the fight against CRT is hurting the efforts for more diversity and inclusion?
I don't want diversity and inclusion. I mean, we already have that.
What I mean by that is you said you want more black stories of hope and success and all of that. That's what I mean.
But that's unfortunately not what CRT is.
Yeah. I know.
That's actually exactly what CRT is.
I think what's...
Wait a minute. They want CRT. They just said it. They said it. There it goes.
Really clear is there's a lot of big opinions on education, across the spectrum, and really thankful to all of you for sharing, your perspectives, where you're coming from. Some of you said it wasn't like this when you were kids. 20 years ago, school was really different. Maybe you couldn't even imagine having some of these conversations. So just want to pose the question to you, and where do we go from here?
I believe that we have to recontextualize the way that we approach education as a society, and specifically how we've kind of started to use education as a political tool. At its core, education serves society. It needs to be a collaborative effort, because if education serves society, society should be investing in education.
We as adults have a lot of work to do, and it's both at kitchen tables and school boards and forums like this. Obviously, literacy is a part of that, and I think there are other parts of that too, but the only way that we can move forward is if, instead of just talking about what do we talk to kids about, I think we have to first get better about how do we talk to each other about this.
I think we have to recenter education about actually preparing young people for the real world and acknowledging the fact that we're not going to have a one-size-fits-all approach that works for every student across America. We have no room and no time, frankly, to teach all these divisive things because we have urban literacy rates that are down in the dumps. When those kids learn how to read, then we can talk about gender theory, CRT. But until
conservatives are massively underfunding our public education system. It is you are conservative. That is your fault.
We have children who are proficient and above a third grade reading level, and a majority of those kids in cities like Chicago and Detroit, we don't need to be even having a conversation about whether or not students should be learning about privilege in schools.
The number one policy thing that I come back to that we must do to improve K through 12 education is to put in school choice at a universal level. It's far too overdue. It will incentivize the public schools to fix a lot of the problems that they have.
No, it won't. It will encourage people to discriminate against the schools they want to. They don't want to go to the schools in neighborhoods that are poor. They don't want to go to schools where they have trans teachers. They don't want to go to schools that have black teachers. They don't want to go to schools that have black students. That is never going to fucking work. Yeah, all the racist people in the world should be able to choose which school they go to. They get to go to the racist school. They're going to go to the overfunded racism school.
Power back into the parent to get their child an education that best meets their needs. And I do think that if we're going to build the best generation of young people, then we should start with teaching them tolerance, kindness, and active listening before we get into racial privilege theory, gender privilege theory, etc.
I think that it's so important to get back to critical thinking and understanding that the way that we raise the next generation is also, not necessarily staying fixed ourselves. I think you were saying that, your wife is learning with the kids. And if we continue to learn about, hey, how do we do this better for ourselves? How do we treat each other better? The more that we do that, the better that we will be able to collaborate with people we disagree with. The better that we'll be able to make a curriculum that actually does speak about the excellence that you're able to do if you, continue to challenge yourself and strive and push forward.
On this panel, a really huge set of diverse opinions. There wasn't really a bad guy. It was, we all wanted the same thing at the end. We just had different ways to get there. So I just think the collaboration is really what I'm taking away, because you can collaborate with anyone.
I think we need to make sacrifices for our children's future and prioritize them a bit more today. Aside from that, if you choose the public school route, I'm all for the collaborative effort, but what that needs to look like is parents showing up to the PTA meetings, showing up to the school board meetings, knowing and being.
What I hate most about this video right now, and it's they're wrapping it up with final thoughts. We'll continue.
Inside the classroom and being actively involved, regardless of which route you take.
I think we've put too much faith into the education of our children in public education when we should be doing more of that ourselves. And we need to make sure that we put more power into the parents and empower them to take control of their child's education.
We just need to stop burning down the house. I truly believe that we can save public ed if we stop arguing with each other and start pouring more resources and really buckling down to save this thing that really in turn saves us. As a society, we can do it. We just need to stop chasing all of these boogeymans that we are just kind of seeing in the media just to polarize everybody and make everybody so angry. We need to stop that and save what we have, because what we have can be great and we need it.
Okay, I think that will do it for us. Thank you all so much for taking your time and for sharing your opinions and being so respectful of each other. Really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you.
You did it!
You did it. You passed.
So sorry. As a final thought, I think there's some good conversations to be had there, but at the end of the day, it took us 2 hours to get through this video. That's 42 minutes long because of stun locks. These videos frustrate me because there's things that are still happening today beyond just should people be able to do school choice, or should critical race theory be taught. Those are discussions that are still happening today, but those are also discussions that were on the in as far as discussions go a long time ago. We have people today trying to ban books that talk about gay people in any sort of way. That wasn't brought up in it. They posted this not that long ago. That was 1 month ago. Where are the discussions on these things? They're skipping. There are more discussions that need to be had about the education system that they didn't have during this debate that should have been had. But all in all, good video. Anyways, that's it for my commentary on it. That's all I got. Yeah, and that's also all for me tonight. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna grab something to eat. I'm gonna get a drink and I'm gonna chill and then go to bed and go to work. But you know, our good friend Will High Streams is streaming right now, so I'm going to send you all over to there. I appreciate you for coming in here. The vid is coming soon. Pog. I'll also send you a link to the highlight for this stream if you would like to edit that down for me and just pull out some highlights and stuff. That would be awesome as well, and I would love you and pay you for it. Thank you, Coldfire. I appreciate you. I'm gonna send you thanks for the stream. Of course, yeah. Of course. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you. I will see you all soon. I'll be back on Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And have a good night.
To me right where I was at. It was a much needed